Hello all, welcome to Sport Facility and Event Management. So today our lecture is on the history of sport facilities and events. As seniors in sport facility and event management, you're preparing to tackle challenges in designing, maintaining, and running sport venues. Understanding how sport facilities evolved from ancient Greece to modern mega events will help you see how the past informs innovation today. So a quick check. Think about your favorite stadium or arena. What makes it memorable? Is it the atmosphere, the history, or the design? Hold that thought because we'll revisit it as we go. Here we go. So here's our roadmap for today's session. By the end, you'll be able to identify key sport facilities in ancient Greece and Rome, analyze historical facility innovations that influence modern design, and apply concepts like diffusion of innovation and place attachment. Recognize how the facility management profession has evolved. Let's dive in. I encourage you to think critically about how these ideas apply to the modern sports industry. Let's begin by setting the stage for our understanding of sport facilities and events. This slide introduces how far back sports and facilities date across different cultures and the historical significance associated with it. So what you'll find is that the evidence we have comes from historical, anthropological, and archaeological sources. These records show us that organized sports are not a modern phenomenon. They've existed for thousands of years. While we often focus on ancient Greece and Rome because of the wealth of information available, it's important to recognize that other cultures also had well-developed sports and events. Some examples across cultures: in North America, lacrosse, which dates back to 1100 AD, was applied by indigenous peoples. It wasn't just a game, it had cultural, spiritual, and social significance, which makes you think in our modern day football, how we all get so pumped up about the game and winning, because there's a lot of cultural, spiritual, and social significance associated with those games, right? Are you with me? Anyway. In Mesoamerica, the ball game, as early as 1400 BC, involved a stone hoop, like the one shown in the image. So this is 1400 BC, long before the North America lacrosse in 1100 AD. And again, it was more than a sport. It carried religious and ceremonial importance. Players would hit a rubber ball, and the outcome of the game could even determine life or death in some cases. In China, the martial art wushu appeared around 770 BC. This highlights the emphasis on physical training for both combat and recreation. In Oceania, early evidence points to games like dart throwing, showing the universality of competition and skill-based activities. Hawaii, the Makahiki Festival celebrated games and athletic competition. It was part of a larger cultural and spiritual event that marked a season of peace and harvest. Now let's take a deeper dive into ancient Greece, the birthplace of organized sport as we know it, and explore the facilities that emerged during this period. The ancient Olympic Games were held every 4 years. It's a tradition we call quadrennial. These games began around 776 BC and continued for over a millennium until 400 AD. They were not merely athletic contests. The games were rooted in religious worship and festivals honoring the Greek god Zeus at Olympia. Sport was deeply connected to physical, intellectual, and spiritual development. So the training and the competitions weren't just about physical strength, but they were a path toward becoming a well-rounded citizen, embodying both mind and body excellence. Common structures for training, development, and competition included the gymnasium, the palæstra, the hippodrome, and the stadium. So what was the gymnasium? It was a multi-use facility central to Greek society. much like our gymnasiums, right? The gymnasium served as a place for recreation, athletic practice, physical education, and even social interaction. Its design combined park-like natural settings for relaxation with built structures for athletic training, making it a versatile and well-used public space. Now, aspects of the gymnasium are some key components. The dromio, which is a straight running track, and sprint training for foot races and sprint training. Prodromus is an open air track for exercises under natural conditions, and the exostos is a roofed area for training during inclement weather. This ensured athletes could practice year-round. And then the palaestra is a rectangular shaped building featuring an open courtyard, primarily used for wrestling and combat sports. So why is this important? The gymnasium wasn't just about physical strength. It symbolized the Greek focus on a balanced lifestyle, mind, body, and spirit. These facilities paved the way for modern multi-purpose sport complex. Think of today's fitness centers or training academies. They owe much of their origin to the gymnasium model. So can you think of any modern facilities that blends natural settings with built structures for athletic training? Parks with running tracks or outdoor gyms might be great examples. Greek stadiums were not only places of athletic competition, again, but also social and cultural hubs, focusing on their shape, features, and cultural elements. So the classic Greek stadium was the heart of ancient athletic competitions, particularly daring events like the Olympic Games. These stadiums were characterized by their rectangular shape and often included features that enhanced both the viewing experience and the functionality for athletes. A typical Greek stadium was at least one stadion or stade in length, which was approximately 600 feet or 180 meters. The size of the stadium was crucial to accommodate large crowds and allow for races and other athletic events. Greek stadiums were often built near hills or valleys. The natural landscape was used advantage to enhance visibility for spectators. By situating the stadium in such locations, architects took advantage of the natural slope of the land, which created tiered seating without requiring additional construction. The positioning allowed large audiences to gather and watch the competitions, often in the open air, with the landscape providing a natural backdrop. At each end of the stadium, there were turning posts, which were used in foot races like the dialos, or double stadium race, and the dolakios, which is a long distance race. Athletes would sprint to the end, turn around the post, and then race back. These posts were crucial in marking the race's endpoints. The starting line in a Greek stadium was often marked by a stone structure, which helped to clearly define the beginning of the race. This line was critical for ensuring fairness and competitive events. Athletes would line up at the stone, ready to start their race in a controlled manner. To ensure the races began with precision, Greek stadiums typically employed a starting mechanism. This mechanism, often a simple rope or signal, would be released at the precise moment the race was to start, giving all participants an equal opportunity to begin the race. The stadiums also featured entrance tunnels that athletes would use to enter the competition area. These tunnels helped organize the flow of competitors into the stadium and added an element of dramatic entrance as athletes prepared to perform in front of a large audience. The tunnels also provided a place for athletes to prepare before their events. Now, Greek stadiums were not only places for athletic contests, but again, also played a key role in the social and cultural life of ancient Greece. They were sites of festivals and religious ceremonies and community gatherings. Athletes who won events were celebrated and often became heroes in their cities. In fact, many of the most famous Greek athletes were treated like celebrities. The competitions were as much about honor and glory as they were about physical prowess. So the Greek stadium was a well thought out structure designed to showcase athletic prowess while offering spectators an engaging and immersive experience. from the use of natural terrain for seating to the strategic placement of features like turning posts, starting lines, and tunnels. Greek architects ensured that these venues were functional, symbolic, and integral to the cultural fabric of ancient Greece. The hippodrome was a specialized venue for horse and chariot racing, one of the most popular and thrilling sports in ancient Greece. Unlike stadiums used for foot races or other athletic events, hippodromes were large, open spaces specifically designed for fast-moving races. The nature of this sport required a relatively flat and expansive area, as horses and chariots needed ample room to race at high speeds. Hippodromes were typically not as highly developed architecturally or structurally compared to stadiums, reflecting the simplicity and focus on the race itself. Now, the design of the Greek hippodrome was relatively straightforward. The track itself was long and narrow, often measuring up to 600 meters or 1,968 feet, approximately in length. The layout was open, allowing for optimal visibility and space for racing. And since the race required speed and precision, the focus was on a clear and unobstructed course for the participants. However, Greek hippodromes lacked the complex structures that were found in later Roman versions. One of the most important distinctions was the absence of a central dividing barrier, a feature that would later be adopted by the Romans to prevent head-on collisions. Instead of the dividing barrier, Greek hippodromes used turning posts to help guide the chariots and horses around the track. These posts marked the ends of the track and defined the course for the racers. The presence of turning posts meant that the horses and chariots had to navigate sharp turns at high speeds, adding to the excitement and danger of the races. Without a central barrier, the races were even more chaotic and required incredible skill and control from the drivers and jockeys. As we mentioned earlier, Greek hippodromes were simpler in design compared to the Roman hippodromes that followed. Roman tracks included central dividing barriers, which were intended to separate the competing teams and reduce the risk of collision. These barriers, called spinae, were placed down the middle of the track, allowing the teams to race in opposite directions, thus avoiding head-on encounters. The Greeks, however, did not see the need for such a division, and their race was organized only around those turning posts, which meant the potential for close calls and dramatic moments of risk. The hippodromes were central to Greek public life, especially during major festivals like the Panathenaic Games, where chariot races were among the most eagerly anticipated events. These races were not only athletic competitions, but also those cultural spectacles that attracted large crowds. And the winners were again celebrated and often became famous across the Greek world, embodying both skill and glory. The races were a form of entertainment, but again also had symbolic importance, showcasing the values of speed, precision, and bravery qualities highly revered in Greek society. Olympia was more than just an athletic venue. Olympia was located in the western part of the Peloponnese near the town of Elis and was renowned for its combination of athletic, cultural, and religious significance. The site was home to the Olympic Games, which were held every 4 years in honor of Zeus, the king of the Greek gods. The area was not just a venue for athletic competitions, but also a sanctuary dedicated to Zeus, filled with temples, statues, and other religious structures. Olympia was therefore a place where the spiritual and the physical coexisted, and athletes competed for both personal glory and divine favor. In addition to the training areas, Olympia also featured baths. These were not just places for hygiene, but also for relaxation and socialization. Bathing was an important part of Greek culture, and the baths at Olympia were used by athletes before and after their events to help with muscle recovery, relaxation, and preparing for competition. They also served as a place for spectators and visitors to refresh themselves during the religious festivals. The Olympic Games began in 776 BC in Olympia, Greece. These early games were not just, again, about athletic competition, but also about the religious festival dedicated to the Zeus the king of the Greek gods. The games were held every 4 years, a tradition that continued for nearly 1,200 years. At first, the games were a simple and singular event, but as the festival grew in importance, more events were added, eventually shaping the multi-sport competition we recognize today. As the Olympic Games grew in importance, the pentathlon was introduced. The pentathlon was an event that tested athletes in a variety of skills, demonstrating the well-rounded nature of Greek athletic training. It was composed of a stadion, which is a sprint race, the long jump, discus throw, javelin throw, and wrestling. The pentathlon was considered one of the most prestigious events in the ancient games. It highlighted the athlete's versatility. Being successful in the pentathlon required excellence in multiple disciplines, including both individual events and combat sports. The winner was awarded the title of the most well-rounded athlete of the games. Combat sports became a major part of the ancient Olympic Games, reflecting the martial traditions of Greek society. Wrestling, one of the oldest sports in the games, was introduced early on. Wrestlers competed in a series of rounds, and the goal was to throw the opponent to the ground 3 times. This event required great strength, technique, and agility. Boxing was another key addition. Unlike modern boxing, ancient Greek boxing had fewer rules, and it was a brutal contest with fewer restrictions on the strikes. Fighters used leather straps around their hands, and the contest ended when one fighter surrendered or was incapacitated. The pancration, one of the most brutal of all Olympic events, was a no-holds-barred competition of boxing and wrestling, much like kickboxing would be today, or ultimate fighting. The goal was to incapacitate or force the opponent to submit, and it was a test of both endurance and ferocity. Pancration became one of the game's most popular events, highlighting the physical limits of human skill and strength. The inclusion of the hippodrome and chariot racing marked another significant expansion of the games. The hippodrome, a large open space for chariot races, was a venue for one of the most dramatic events in the Olympics. And chariot races were an exciting and dangerous spectacle where teams of horses pulled chariots driven by skilled athletes. The races were often held with several chariots competing at once, and the turning post at the end of the track added to the difficulty and danger of the event. The chariot races were a major draw for spectators and added a distinct element of grandeur to the games. Over the years, the events of the Olympics continued to evolve. New sports were added and others faded away. However, by the time of the final games in 393 AD, many of the original events remained, including the stadium race, pentathlon, and combat sports. Despite the decline of the games after the Roman Empire outlawed pagan festivals, the legacy of the events continued to influence the structure of modern competitions. To conclude, the ancient Olympic Games began with a single event, the stadium race, but over the centuries, more events were added to showcase the wide range of athletic skills that the Greeks valued. From the introduction of dialos and dolikos to the multifaceted pentathlon, the games expanded to include events that tested speed, endurance, strength, and skill. Combat sports like wrestling, boxing, and pancration further enriched the competition, and the inclusion of chariot races added an element of grandeur and excitement. These ancient contests, held every 4 years, laid the foundations for many aspects of the modern Olympic Games, influencing the format and structure of our contemporary Olympic competitions. The amphitheater, a hallmark of Roman architecture and the primary venue for sport and entertainment in the Roman world, the amphitheater is widely regarded as the most distinctive form of Roman architecture, blending functional design with dramatic spectacle. Unlike Greek theaters, which were typically built in natural hillsides, Roman amphitheaters were freestanding structures designed specifically for large-scale entertainment. The general design of the amphitheater is oval, with a large central area surrounded by tiered seating that provided better visibility for spectators. The seating was organized in several tiers of increasing height, ensuring that spectators from all parts of the venue could enjoy the events, regardless of their social status. Amphitheaters were used primarily for public events, including gladiatorial contests, beast hunts, and even aquatic displays. One of the most iconic events held in the Roman amphitheater was the gladiatorial contest. These were fierce battles between gladiators who were often slaves, prisoners of war, or criminals, though some volunteers were seeking fame and fortune. Now, the purpose was originally held as part of funeral rites to honor the deceased, but they eventually became public entertainment in the larger Roman society. There were various types of gladiators, each specializing in different weapons and fighting styles. Gladiatorial combat was brutal, and the fights often ended with the death of one or both contestants, though the outcome could be influenced by the crowd's reaction. If a gladiator was deemed worthy of life, the editor or sponsor of the games could grant mercy. The gladiatorial contests were held for the entertainment of the public, but they also served as a means for the ruling elite to demonstrate their power, generosity, and ability to entertain the masses. The beast hunts were another major event, and these events involved the hunting and killing of wild animals, often in elaborate displays that showcased the wealth and power of the sponsor. The animals used in these events were typically exotic and came from all corners of the empire, including lions, tigers, elephants, bears, and hippopotamuses. During the Venatio, these wild beasts were released into the arena to fight one another or engage in mock hunts against skilled animal hunters or gladiators. The goal was to display the triumph of human control over nature and exotic wildlife. The hunts were dangerous, not only for the animals, but also for the trainers and gladiators who participated in the events. Some gladiators specialized in hunting these wild beasts, becoming famous for their ability to tame and subdue dangerous creatures. They were part of the Roman Empire and demonstrated control over the natural world. The Roman amphitheaters were not just limited to land-based events. They also hosted aquatic displays and mock naval battles, such as known as Nemochae. These spectacles took place in specially prepared amphitheaters that were flooded with water. In these events, participants would engage in naval combat, mimicking famous naval battles for the entertainment of the audience. These events were grand in scale and often involved elaborate props and costumes. The arena was flooded and ship replicas would be used to simulate naval combat, sometimes even involving real ships and soldiers. These displays required immense logistical planning and resources, and their grand nature added to the sense of Roman superiority and control over both land and sea. Initially, the Roman amphitheater did not have the monumental stone designs we associate with the Roman Empire. The early amphitheaters were constructed as temporary wooden structures, often erected for specific events or festivals. These temporary amphitheaters were primarily used for gladiator contests and other public spectacles that were held during celebrations or as part of special state-sponsored events. So they were made of wooden planks and scaffolding. These were easily assembled and could be moved or dismantled as needed. They were designed for short-term use, lacking the durability and permanence of later stone amphitheaters. Because of their temporary design, these wooden amphitheaters were more vulnerable to damage and destruction from both natural wear and political upheaval. As such, many of these early structures did not survive the passage of time. However, these wooden structures laid the groundwork for the eventual development of the most permanent grand amphitheaters that would become central to Roman entertainment. By the 1st century BC, the need for a more permanent and impressive venue for public spectacles became clear. As the Roman Empire expanded and became more prosperous, the desire to build grand, lasting structures to host increasingly elaborate events grew. The Romans began to move away from temporary wooden structures and embraced permanent stone amphitheaters that would serve as lasting symbols of Roman engineering and culture. These new amphitheaters were built with stone and concrete, which allowed for more durability and larger scale. The use of arches and vaults enabled the construction of amphitheaters with multiple tiers of seating, capable of holding tens of thousands of spectators. This transition marks a significant shift in Roman architecture from temporary solutions to grand monumental spaces that would serve the empire for centuries. Built around 80 BC, the Pompey Amphitheater is constructed primarily of stone and concrete with a distinctive oval shape and tiered seating. It is believed to have been built by the wealthy elites of Pompeii to provide entertainment for the city's population. Although it's smaller than later amphitheaters like the Colosseum, it could hold an impressive 20,000 spectators, a significant number for that time. The structure was built in the natural slope of the land, making use of the surrounding geography to enhance seating capacity. So the Pompey Amphitheater is often considered one of the earliest true Roman amphitheaters due to its permanent construction. It set the stage for development of more grand wall amphitheaters across the Roman Empire. And it set the blueprint for later amphitheaters in terms of its oval design, the tiered seating, and use of stone construction. Larger venues such as the Colosseum in Rome would follow similar principles, but on a much grander scale. The success of Pompey's amphitheater also highlighted the growing importance of public spectacles in Roman culture. The use of permanent stone structures for these events solidified their role as a central aspect of Roman public life. The Flavian Amphitheater refers to the patronage of the Flavian dynasty, during whose reign the building was constructed, but the structure is better known as the Colosseum. The Colosseum is renowned not only for its architectural significance, but also for its massive scale. The arena itself, where the spectacles took place, measures approximately 80 meters by 50 meters. And the vast space was used for a variety of events, from a gladiatorial combat to animal hunts and mock battles. The entire structure, including the seating and surrounding walls, has exterior dimensions of 188 meters by 156 meters. This immense size made the Colosseum one of the largest amphitheaters in the Roman world. It could hold between 45,000 and 50,000 spectators. This makes it one of the largest sports venues in the ancient world, capable of accommodating a huge crowd to witness the various events that took place. And while I know that's not big in our standards now, it was in that period of time, if you can think about it then. The word circus comes from the Latin term for horse track, which provides insight into its primary function in hosting chariot races. Now, the circus is similar to the hippodrome of the Greeks, but the circus is considered to be a Roman entity as such. So these races were among the most popular and thrilling events in ancient Rome, attracting huge crowds. The races were fast-paced, dangerous, and highly competitive. The typical circus could accommodate up to 12 chariots racing at once, which allowed for intense competition and was a major attraction for Roman spectators. The size and length of the circus tracks could vary, but they were generally vast to accommodate the high-speed races. And so they typically were approximately 120 feet by 1,900 feet. The longer tracks allowed for multiple laps and created the opportunity for those dramatic turns and high-speed thrills. While some circuses were smaller, the largest and most famous circus was the Circus Maximus in Rome, which accommodated massive crowds and the largest chariot teams. Unlike the amphitheater, which was more common throughout the Roman Empire, the circus was a less frequent but highly prestigious structure in Roman cities. And while they were less common than the amphitheaters, they were still significant. They were mostly found in large cities or important urban centers where there was enough wealth and infrastructure to support such grand structure. Building a circus was often seen as a status symbol for a city. A circus demonstrated not only the wealth and power of a city, but it's also its importance in hosting grand public events, including the annual chariot races that were central to Roman entertainment. The Circus Maximus was located in the heart of Rome, nestled between Palatine and Aventine Hill. It was the largest and most important circus in the Roman world, not only serving as a site for chariot races, but also playing a key role in public life and political power. It was truly massive, capable of holding hundreds of thousands of spectators. Modern scholars estimate that the Circus Maximus could hold anywhere from 150 to 350,000 spectators, a truly staggering number considering the era. The highest estimates of capacity considered most credible were during the reign of Emperor Trajan, which is 99 to 117 AD, at a time when the Circus Maximus was likely at its peak, and the estimate suggests that the arena could hold up to 350,000 people. The Circus Maximus was more than a venue for sport. It played a key role in Roman culture and politics. Chariot races held in the Circus Maximus were, again, popular public spectacles in ancient Rome. They were thrilling, fast-paced, and highly competitive and drew massive crowds. And hosting a large-scale venue underscored the power and wealth of the Roman Empire. It symbolized the Roman commitment to providing free entertainment for the people, which was important for maintaining public favor and political stability. Can you imagine? Races in the Circus Maximus were sometimes used as tools for political influence, with emperors and politicians sponsoring events to gain favor with the people and showcase their generosity. So in conclusion, the development of the current profession of facility and event management in sport is inexplicably tied to historical development of sport and the sport venues that house these activities and events. This chapter introduces several classic facilities from both ancient times along with the more recent past. We'll talk more about that in part 2. And it remains somewhat cursory in relation to the depth of information available regarding other similar facilities not specifically covered within this chapter. I look forward to talking with you again. We'll be going over part 2, more recent facilities and events, coming up next. Have a great day.